The crisp white envelope sits heavy in my hands as I stare at the embossed gold lettering. Riverside Hills Country Club Annual Membership Directory. Inside, tucked between the cream-colored pages listing Ohio's most affluent families, my name appears in elegant script. Marcus Thompson, members since 2024. 7 years of disciplined investing, careful budgeting, and strategic financial planning have led to this moment. The membership I've worked toward in complete silence, telling no one about the quarterly reviews, the background checks, or the substantial initiation fee I've been quietly accumulating. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My phone buzzes with a text from Derek, my older brother. Hope you're not planning to embarrass the family again this year with your thrift store clothes. Some of us actually have reputations to maintain at these reunions. I set the phone face down without responding, the familiar sting of his condescension settling in my chest like it has for the past 32 years. Tomorrow's annual Thompson family reunion looms ahead, and Derek has already made it clear what role he expects me to play. The struggling younger brother who never quite figured out how to achieve the success that seems to come so naturally to him. He drives the leased BMW, lives in the Sunset Ridge development with its manicured lawns and homeowner association regulations, and never misses an opportunity to remind everyone about his sales manager position at the luxury car dealership. What Derek doesn't know, what none of them know, is that while he's been busy displaying the symbols of wealth he can't actually afford, I've been quietly building the real thing. The Oakwood Community Center parking lot fills with familiar vehicles as I pull up in my modest Honda Civic. Derek's BMW gleams prominently near the entrance, positioned where everyone entering the building will notice it. The vanity plate reads, DEALRKNG, and I can practically hear his voice explaining to anyone within earshot about his latest quarterly bonus and the exclusive client events he attends. Inside the community center, the annual chaos of the Thompson family reunion unfolds exactly as it has for the past 15 years. Folding tables laden with casserole dishes and homemade desserts line the walls, while children dart between clusters of adults sharing updates about jobs, marriages, and neighborhood gossip. The familiar scent of Aunt Carol's famous potato salad mingles with the industrial carpet smell that defines every community center gathering. Derek holds court near the main entrance, his voice carrying across the room as he regales Uncle Paul with stories about his recent promotion. The district manager position comes with a company car upgrade, he's saying, gesturing toward the parking lot. Plus access to the executive customer events. Last month we had dinner at the governor's private club. Vanessa, his wife, nods approvingly while adjusting her designer handbag, the latest acquisition in her ongoing mission to project affluence, that their credit card statements probably tell a different story about. She spots me approaching and offers a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. Marcus, so good to see you, she says, her tone carrying that particular pitch reserved for speaking to relatives you feel sorry for. How's the accounting work going? Still at that little firm downtown, Henderson and Associates, I reply simply. Going well, thanks. Derek turns from his conversation with Uncle Paul, his expression shifting to the familiar blend of amusement and condescension he's perfected over the years. Marcus. There he is, the family's financial genius. Still driving that same car from college, I see. The comment draws scattered chuckles from nearby relatives, the kind of laughter that acknowledges a family dynamic everyone's come to accept. Marcus, the practical one. Marcus, who counts every penny. Marcus, who never learned how to live a little. It's reliable, I say, refusing to take the bait. Reliable, Derek repeats, shaking his head with exaggerated pity. Brother, you're 32 years old. At some point you've got to invest in yourself. Image matters in this world. Mom approaches, carrying a plate of her famous chocolate chip cookies, her face already showing the slight tension that appears whenever Derek starts his performance. Boys, please. It's supposed to be a nice family day. I'm just trying to help him, Mom, Derek says, his tone shifting to wounded innocence. Look around this room. Everyone else has figured out how to build something for themselves. Poor Marcus is still living like he's fresh out of college. Poor Marcus. The phrase hangs in the air and I feel the familiar heat rising in my cheeks. Not anger exactly, but something deeper. 7 years of hearing variations of this speech. 7 years of family gatherings where Derek positions himself as the successful brother and me as the cautionary tale. What Derek doesn't realize is that while he's been busy performing success, I've been achieving it. 3 years ago, when Derek bought his house in Sunset Ridge with the minimum down payment and a mortgage that stretched his budget to its absolute limit, I was making my first substantial investment in a diversified portfolio that's quietly grown by 38%. When he leased the BMW to impress clients who probably don't notice what he drives, I paid cash for my Honda and invested the difference in municipal bonds that provide steady quarterly income. When Derek and Vanessa took their Instagram-worthy vacation to the Bahamas last spring, charging the entire trip to credit cards they're still paying off, I was meeting with Patricia Wells at Riverside Hills Country Club, discussing the final details of my membership application. The irony isn't lost on me. Derek talks constantly about networking and business connections, about the importance of being seen in the right places with the right people. He just doesn't know that I've been quietly building those connections for years, forming relationships based on substance rather than show. Earth to Marcus, Derek's voice cuts through my thoughts. I was asking about your dating life, still focusing on your finances instead of finding someone. The question carries.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
His trademark blend of concern and superiority, the implication being that my priorities are somehow fundamentally wrong. The gathered relatives watch this familiar dynamic play out, some with amusement, others with the slight discomfort that comes from witnessing family patterns that probably aren't healthy but have become too entrenched to address. I'm doing fine, Derek, I reply, my voice steadier than I feel. Fine, he repeats, exchanging a knowing look with Vanessa. You know what fine gets you, brother. It gets you eating alone at Tony's diner every night instead of building a real life. The comment stings because there's a grain of truth in it. I do eat at Tony's diner frequently, though not because I can't afford better options. I eat there because Tony makes excellent coffee, the Wi-Fi is reliable, and the corner booth provides a quiet space to review investment reports and plan my financial future. But explaining this would only invite more condescension about my obsession with money management. Dad joins our circle, carrying a beer and wearing the slightly strained expression he gets when family dynamics start heading toward uncomfortable territory. How's work treating everyone? He asks, the question clearly designed to steer the conversation toward safer ground. Fantastic, Derek jumps in immediately. The luxury market is booming. We sold 3 vehicles over $100,000 just last week. The commission on those deals alone probably covers Marcus's entire monthly budget. The casual cruelty of the comment catches me off guard, not because it's particularly creative or cutting, but because of how automatic it is. Derek doesn't even seem to realize he's being cruel. This is simply how he talks about me, how he's always talked about me. The responsible brother who never learned to dream big, who settled for safe instead of reaching for success. If he only knew that my investment portfolio currently exceeds his annual salary by a factor of 3. If he understood that my boring job at Henderson & Associates has provided steady income that's allowed me to build wealth while his flashy sales position depends on market fluctuations and customer whims he can't control. But I've never corrected his assumptions, never defended myself against his casual dismissals. Part of it is personality. I've never been comfortable with boasting or drawing attention to personal achievements. Part of it is strategy. Letting Derek underestimate me has actually worked to my advantage in certain family situations over the years. Mostly though, it's been easier to let him maintain his narrative than to deal with the questions and resentment that would inevitably follow if he knew the truth about my financial situation. Cousin Tyler approaches our group, fresh from his first year of college, and full of enthusiasm about his business major. Uncle Derek, I've been thinking about what you said last Christmas about networking and building connections. Do you really think joining clubs and organizations makes that big a difference? Derek's face lights up at the opportunity to dispense wisdom to an eager audience. Absolutely, Tyler. It's all about access. You need to be where the decision makers are, where the real business gets done. Country clubs, exclusive restaurants, private events. That's where opportunities happen. Like where? Tyler asks, genuinely curious. Well, Riverside Hills Country Club for instance. Derek says, his tone taking on the reverent quality he reserves for discussing things he considers beyond his current reach. That's where all the major business owners in town belong. The mayor, the bank presidents, the real estate developers. If you could get access to a place like that, you'd be set for life. I feel something shift inside me, a tectonic plate finding new alignment. For years I've listened to Derek's theories about success and networking, his grand pronouncements about who matters and who doesn't in the business world of Riverside, Ohio. I've watched him perform wealth and status while building neither, heard him lecture about opportunities he's never actually pursued. Interesting, I say quietly, my voice carrying a note Tyler catches but Derek misses entirely. The membership fee alone is probably $50,000, Derek continues, warming to his subject. Plus monthly dues, dining minimums, guest fees. You're looking at serious money just for the privilege of belonging. But that's what separates the players from the people who just talk about playing. Vanessa nods sagely, as if she's personally familiar with the economics of exclusive club membership rather than having learned about it from Derek's occasional drive-bys of the country club entrance. It's an investment in your future, she adds. The connections you make there can change your entire trajectory. Absolutely, Derek agrees. But you have to be able to afford that level of investment. Some people, his eyes flick toward me with casual dismissal, are too focused on saving every penny to understand that sometimes you have to spend money to make money. The familiar lecture about my financial conservatism feels different this time. Instead of the usual sting of criticism, I feel something else building. 7 years of these conversations, 7 years of being positioned as the family member who doesn't quite understand how the world works, who's too small-minded to grasp the bigger picture of success and ambition. I excuse myself from the group and head toward the restroom, needing a moment to process the strange combination of anger and anticipation building in my chest. In the mirror above the community center sink, I see the face Derek sees: conservative haircut, modest clothes, the appearance of someone who's exactly what he claims to be. A man who plays it safe, who chooses security over growth, who'll never understand what it takes to build something significant. What Derek doesn't see, what none of them see, is the spreadsheet on my phone tracking investment returns that have outperformed the market for 4 consecutive years, the savings account balance that could cover Derek's mortgage for the next 18 months, the retirement portfolio that's already larger than most people accumulate in a lifetime of working. Most importantly, what they don't see is the email in my inbox from Patricia Wells, confirming my tea time for next Thursday at Riverside Hills Country Club, followed by lunch in the member dining room with 2 city council members who've become unexpected friends over the past 6 months. When I return to the main room, Derek has moved on to entertaining a new audience with stories about his latest sales achievements. The performance continues, the same script he's been refining for years. I watch him work the room, noting how naturally the role of successful family member comes to him, how easily the relatives accept his version of our family hierarchy. Part of me feels genuine sadness watching Derek's performance. He's not a bad person, not truly malicious. He's simply a man who's confused the appearance of success with success itself, who's built his identity around a narrative that requires me to play the role of the brother who never quite figured it out. But as I stand there listening to him explain to cousin Tyler why thinking small is the biggest mistake young people make in building their careers, I realize that 7 years of accepting this dynamic might be enough. Tomorrow I think might be time for a different conversation. The reunion continues around me, the familiar rhythms of family gossip and shared memories, children running between tables and adults catching up on another year of births, deaths, promotions and disappointments. Derek holds court near the dessert table now, his voice carrying across the room as he explains to anyone who'll listen why luxury car sales is really about understanding human psychology and building trust. I help myself to a piece of Aunt Carol's famous lemon cake and find a quiet spot near the windows overlooking the community center's small garden. Through the glass I can see the parking lot where Derek's BMW continues its silent advertising campaign, positioned for maximum visibility and impact. My phone buzzes with a text from James Martinez, my closest friend since college, and the one person who knows the full extent of my financial planning over the past 7 years. How's the family performance art going? Derek still playing successful businessman? I type back, just getting warmed up. Tomorrow might be interesting.
Finally ready to drop the bomb?
He responds. I consider the question seriously. Am I ready? For 7 years I've maintained this careful balance, allowing Derek his narrative while building my actual success in private. There's been comfort in the anonymity, peace in being underestimated, but there's also been cost. The constant implications that I'm somehow less than, that my choices reflect limitation rather than strategy, that my careful approach to money represents fear rather than wisdom. Maybe, I text back, we'll see. The reunion begins winding down as families gather their dishes and round up tired children. Derek makes his rounds, ensuring everyone gets a final dose of his success narrative before departing. When he reaches me, his expression carries that familiar blend of affection and pity that's characterized our relationship for as long as I can remember. "Good seeing you, Marcus," he says, clapping me on the shoulder. "We should grab lunch soon. I've got some ideas about investments that might help you finally start building some real wealth." The offer hangs between us, genuine in its intent but condescending in its assumption that Derek understands investing better than I do, which he doesn't. His investment strategy consists mainly of whatever his bank's financial advisor recommends, combined with get-rich-quick schemes he discovers through social media and immediately abandons when they require actual work or patience. "I'd like that," I reply, surprising both of us with my sincere tone. Derek's eyebrows raise slightly. Usually I deflect his offers of financial guidance with polite excuses. "Really? Great. How about next Thursday? I know this great place for lunch." "Next Thursday works," I say, an idea beginning to form. "Actually, let me pick the spot this time. I'll text you the details." Derek looks puzzled but agrees, probably assuming I'm finally ready to acknowledge his superior understanding of money and success. We part ways with plans to connect during the week, Derek heading toward his BMW with Vanessa in tow, me walking slowly toward my Honda while considering the possibilities that next Thursday might offer. As I drive home through the familiar streets of Riverside, past the modest houses and local businesses that make up my daily world, I think about the conversation with cousin Tyler and Derek's passionate lecture about the importance of being where the decision-makers are. His description of Riverside Hills Country Club as the ultimate networking destination, the place where real business happens, the symbol of having truly made it in our small Ohio city. He's not wrong about the club's significance. Riverside Hills has been the social and business center of our community since 1952. A beautifully maintained facility overlooking the Riverside Lake with a championship golf course that's hosted several regional tournaments. Membership has always been by invitation only, requiring not just significant financial resources but also sponsorship from existing members and approval from the membership committee. For the past 6 months I've been having lunch there twice a week with Patricia Wells, the membership director who became a friend after we met at a municipal bond presentation at the library. Those lunches led to introductions to other members, gradual integration into the club's informal business networks, and eventually an invitation to apply for membership myself. The process took 8 months from initial application to final approval, background checks, financial verification, interviews with the membership committee, sponsorship letters from existing members who'd come to know me through those quiet Tuesday and Thursday lunches in the member dining room. Derek has no idea that while he's been driving past the club entrance and dreaming about the networking opportunities inside, I've been building relationships with the bank president who approved my investment loan, the city council member who's been advocating for downtown development projects, and the real estate developer who's offered me first consideration on 2 commercial properties that aren't yet on the market. But tomorrow's lunch might be the perfect opportunity to share some of that information. I pull into my driveway, looking at the small ranch house that Derek dismisses as evidence of my limited ambition. What he doesn't know is that the mortgage was paid off 2 years ago, that the modest exterior hides a completely renovated interior with high-end finishes and smart home technology, and that the property value has increased by 47% since I bought it 8 years ago. More importantly, he doesn't know that this house represents a choice rather than a limitation. I could afford something much larger, something in Derek's neighborhood or even more expensive, but I chose efficiency over display, functionality over impression, building wealth rather than appearing wealthy. The difference between those approaches is about to become very clear. Part 2. The Monday morning email from Derek arrives precisely at 8:15. Just as I'm reviewing quarterly earnings reports at my desk in the Henderson & Associates office. His message carries the familiar tone of someone doing a favor for a less fortunate relative. "Marcus, looking forward to Thursday lunch. I've been researching some investment opportunities that could really help your situation. There's this new cryptocurrency platform that's showing incredible returns. We'll talk." I delete the email without responding, then open my investment portfolio dashboard to review the morning's market activity. The diversified mix of municipal bonds, blue-chip stocks and real estate investment trusts shows a steady upward trend that reflects months of careful research and strategic positioning. The cryptocurrency Derek mentioned peaked 6 months ago and has since lost 60% of its value, a fact he'd discover if he spent as much time researching investments as he does talking about them. Patricia Wells calls just before noon with an update about Thursday's arrangements. Marcus, I wanted to confirm that the Riverside room is reserved for your lunch party. The chef has prepared a special menu featuring the lamb Wellington you enjoyed last month. Will you need anything else for your guest? Just the usual setup, Patricia. And thank you for accommodating the last-minute reservation. Of course, Mr. Hartwell from the bank mentioned he might stop by to say hello if his schedule permits. I hope that's acceptable. Richard Hartwell, president of First Bank of Riverside and a member for over 20 years, has become an unexpected mentor since my membership began. Our conversations about municipal finance and regional development have evolved into a genuine friendship built on shared interests in economic policy and community growth. His casual appearance at Thursday's lunch will be purely coincidental, of course, though Patricia's tone suggests she understands the potential significance of the timing. The rest of Monday passes in the comfortable routine of client consultations and financial analysis that defines my work at Henderson & Associates. The firm may not have the prestige Derek associates with success, but it provides exactly what I've always valued: steady income, intellectual challenge and the flexibility to pursue my investment strategies without corporate interference. My colleagues respect my analytical skills, my clients trust my judgment, and the partners have hinted at potential ownership opportunities within the next 2 years. None of this impresses Derek, of course. In his worldview, success is measured by visible symbols rather than actual achievement, by salary figures rather than net worth, by job titles rather than professional competence. He sees my modest office and assumes limitation, missing entirely the satisfied clients whose portfolios I manage and the growing reputation I've built within Riverside's financial community. Tuesday morning brings an unexpected complication in the form of a phone call from Mom. Her voice carries the particular strain that appears whenever she senses developing tension between Derek and me, a maternal radar honed by 32 years of managing family dynamics. Marcus, honey, Derek mentioned you two are having lunch on Thursday. That's wonderful. You boys don't spend nearly enough time together. We're both busy, Mom. It's hard to coordinate schedules. I know. It's just that sometimes I worry you feel left out when Derek talks about his success. You know he loves you, right? He just wants you to be happy. The conversation continues for 20 minutes, Mom carefully treading the line between supporting both sons while acknowledging neither the scope of Derek's condescension nor the reality of my financial situation. She means well, but her attempts at family diplomacy have inadvertently enabled Derek's behavior for years, creating space for his performance while expecting me to absorb his casual cruelty without complaint. Thursday will be fine, Mom, I assure her before ending the call. Derek and I understand each other better than you might think. Wednesday evening finds me reviewing the final details for Thursday's lunch while sitting in my home office, a space Derek has never seen because he's never bothered to visit my house. The room reflects 7 years of careful curation, built-in bookshelves lined with investment texts and economic journals, a standing desk with dual monitors displaying real-time market data, and framed certificates recognizing various professional achievements that Derek assumes don't exist. The centerpiece of the room is a simple oak table, where I conduct my evening ritual of reviewing investment performance and planning strategic adjustments. Tonight's review shows particularly strong results from the municipal bond portfolio, steady growth in the blue-chip holdings, and promising developments in the real estate investment trust that's exceeded projections for 6 consecutive quarters. My phone buzzes with a text from James Martinez. Tomorrow's the big day. You nervous? Curious, I respond. Derek's been performing success for so long, I'm genuinely interested to see how he handles encountering the real thing. Think he'll get it? That's the question I've been pondering for 3 days. Derek has built his identity around being the successful Thompson brother, the one who understands money and networking and the importance of projecting the right image. Tomorrow's lunch will challenge that narrative in ways he's never experienced, confronting him with evidence that his assumptions about success, about me and about himself might be fundamentally wrong. The question isn't whether Derek will understand what he's seeing.
The question is whether he'll be capable of processing information that contradicts 7 years of carefully constructed beliefs about family hierarchy and personal achievement. Thursday morning dawns clear and bright, perfect weather for the short drive from my house to Riverside Hills Country Club. I dress carefully in the navy blazer and gray slacks that have become my standard lunch attire at the club, clothes that Derek would probably dismiss as boring but that Patricia Wells once complimented as understated elegance. The difference between those perspectives encapsulates everything about this day's potential revelations. Derek's BMW is already in the parking lot when I arrive, positioned prominently near the main entrance as always. Through the clubhouse windows I can see him pacing in the lobby, his nervous energy evident even from a distance. He's dressed in what he clearly considers his most impressive outfit, expensive suit, designer watch, Italian leather shoes that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, but somehow managed to look less appropriate for the setting than my simple blazer. Marcus, Derek's voice carries across the lobby as I enter. This place is incredible. I had no idea it was this nice inside. The comment reveals more than Derek intends. He's driven past the club countless times, spoken reverently about its significance, built elaborate theories about the networking opportunities it represents, but he's never actually been inside. His assumptions about exclusivity and luxury have been formed entirely from external observation and imagination. Patricia Wells appears at my side with the efficient grace that defines everything about her management style. Good afternoon, Marcus. Your table is ready in the Riverside room. Derek's eyebrows rise slightly at the familiar way Patricia addresses me, the assumption of recognition that suggests previous visits. He follows us through the clubhouse, his head turning to take in details he's only imagined. The oil paintings of club founders, the trophy cases displaying decades of tournament victories, the quiet conversations between members whose
names he probably recognizes from newspaper business pages. The Riverside room overlooks the 18th green and the lake beyond, large windows providing natural light that makes the modest dining space feel both intimate and grand. Our table sits beside the window, positioned to offer the best view while maintaining privacy for conversation. Derek takes his seat slowly, clearly processing the reality of being inside a space he's mythologized for years. "This is incredible," he says again, his voice carrying genuine awe. "I can see why membership here would be such a game changer for business networking." The waiter approaches with menus and the wine list, addressing me by name and asking if I'd like the usual for lunch. Derek notices this interaction, adding it to his growing collection of observations about my apparent familiarity with the club's protocols and staff. "You've been here before," Derek says after the waiter departs. It's not quite a question, more an attempt to understand how his financially conservative brother gained access to Riverside Hills Country Club for even a single meal. "A few times," I reply, deliberately understating the reality of twice-weekly lunches over the past 6 months. Derek nods, probably assuming I've managed to arrange this lunch through some professional connection, perhaps a client meeting or business event that provided temporary access to the club's facilities. The idea that I might belong here hasn't yet occurred to him, falling outside the boundaries of what he considers possible given his understanding of my finances and social connections. The waiter returns with our appetizers and Derek's questions begin in earnest. Where did I hear about this place? How did I manage to get reservations? Do I know any of the other members? Each question reveals his assumptions about my relationship to the club while failing to consider possibilities that challenge his fundamental beliefs about our respective positions in Riverside's social and economic hierarchy. "The lamb Wellington is excellent here," I mention casually as Derek studies the menu with the concentration of someone trying to decode a foreign language. "You've had it before, several times. The chef does something special with the herbs that makes it particularly memorable." Derek's confusion deepens. His brother, the man who eats at Tony's Diner and drives a Honda Civic, speaks with casual familiarity about the culinary specialties of Riverside Hills Country Club. The cognitive dissonance is beginning to register, though he hasn't yet connected the dots to their inevitable conclusion. Richard Hartwell approaches our table just as the main courses arrive, his timing perfect in the way that only seems coincidental to people who don't understand how Patricia Wells orchestrates these social moments. "Marcus, good to see you again. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Not at all, Richard. I'd like you to meet my brother Derek." "Derek, this is Richard Hartwell, president of First Bank of Riverside." Derek's face transforms as he processes the introduction, Richard Hartwell represents everything Derek aspires to: genuine business success, community influence, the kind of established wealth that doesn't need to be performed or announced. The bank president's casual familiarity with me, his comfortable assumption that interrupting our lunch is perfectly acceptable, suggests a relationship that extends far beyond a single business interaction. "Pleasure to meet you, Derek," Richard says, shaking hands with genuine warmth. "Marcus has told me so much about his family. Are you thinking about joining us here at the club?" The question hangs in the air between them, loaded with implications Derek is just beginning to grasp. Richard's phrasing suggests that membership is a possibility Derek might pursue, not an impossibility based on financial limitations. More significantly, it implies that I've discussed Derek with the bank president during previous conversations that took place in settings Derek is only now beginning to understand. "I've always admired the club," Derek manages, his usual confidence replaced by uncertainty. "The reputation, the history, the networking opportunities." "Absolutely," Richard agrees. "The connections you make here can transform your entire approach to business." Marcus has been particularly insightful about regional development trends. His perspective on municipal bond markets has been invaluable for our commercial lending strategies. Derek looks at me with open bewilderment. Municipal bonds and commercial lending strategies fall far outside his understanding of my professional expertise, representing conversations and knowledge he's never associated with his accountant brother who works at a small downtown firm. "I should let you gentlemen get back to your lunch," Richard says, after a few more minutes of conversation. "Marcus, I'll see you next Tuesday for our usual discussion about the waterfront development project." After Richard departs, Derek sits in silence for several minutes, mechanically eating his salmon while processing what he's witnessed. The casual friendship between his brother and one of Riverside's most influential business leaders challenges every assumption he's made about our relative positions in the community's economic hierarchy. "How do you know Richard Hartwell?" Derek finally asks. "We met through municipal bond presentations at the library. Turns out we share similar interests in regional economic development." The explanation is truthful but incomplete, omitting the months of relationship building that transformed a professional acquaintance into genuine friendship. Derek nods as if this makes sense, though his expression suggests he's struggling to reconcile this information with his understanding of who I am and what I do with my time. "Municipal bonds," Derek repeats slowly. "That's not really accounting, is it?" "Investment strategy," I correct gently. "I manage portfolios for several clients, plus my own holdings." "Your own holdings?" The phrase seems to catch Derek off guard, as if the idea of his conservative brother having significant investments hadn't occurred to him. His understanding of my finances has been limited to assumptions about salary limitations and excessive frugality, missing entirely the possibility that careful spending might enable substantial investing. Our conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Patricia Wells, who approaches our table with the comfortable authority of someone accustomed to managing the club's social dynamics. "Marcus, I hope everything has been satisfactory today. The chef wanted me to ask if you'd like him to prepare the chocolate soufflé for dessert. He knows it's one of your favorites." Derek's attention sharpens at this exchange. The membership director knows my dessert preferences. The chef considers my culinary tastes worth remembering. These details suggest a relationship with the club that extends far beyond occasional guest privileges. "That would be wonderful, Patricia. And Derek, would you care for dessert?" Derek declines, his focus entirely on trying to understand the dynamics he's witnessing. After Patricia departs, he leans forward across the table, his voice dropping to a whisper despite the privacy of our corner location. "Marcus, exactly what is your relationship with this place?" The question I've been waiting for, delivered with the intensity of someone who suspects the answer might challenge everything he thought he knew about his family and his place within it. "I'm a member," I say simply. The words hit Derek like a physical blow. His face goes through a series of expressions: confusion, disbelief, something approaching panic as he processes the implications of what I've just revealed. "A member? You're a member of Riverside Hills Country Club?" Since April," he repeats, his voice barely audible. "You've been a member here for 6 months and you never mentioned it. You never asked." Derek sits back in his chair, his mind clearly racing through months of conversations where he've lectured me about networking and success, about the importance of being where the decision makers are, about the exclusive nature of places like Riverside Hills Country Club. All those conversations took place while I was already a member of the very organization he held up as the ultimate symbol of business achievement. "The membership fee," Derek says slowly. "The initiation costs, the monthly dues, How did you? He trails off, unable to complete the question because finishing it would require acknowledging that his assumptions about my finances might be completely wrong. I saved for it, I reply. The same way I've saved for everything else. But the initiation fee alone must be $50,000. $42,000 I correct, plus monthly dues of $850, dining minimums of $200 per month and various activity fees depending on usage. Derek stares at me as if I've revealed the ability to speak a foreign language. The casual way I discuss these numbers, the detailed knowledge of membership costs, the matter-of-fact tone I use to describe financial commitments he considers beyond reach, all of this forces him to confront the possibility that his understanding of my economic situation has been fundamentally incorrect. Marcus, Derek says carefully, exactly how much money do you have? The question hangs between us. 7 years of family dynamics crystallized into a single moment of potential revelation. Derek has built his identity around being the successful brother, the one who understands money and achievement. Now he's sitting in the dining room of Riverside Hills Country Club, watching me interact with bank presidents and membership directors as if I belong here, discovering that I've achieved the very symbols of success he's spent years claiming to understand. Enough, I reply, meeting his eyes directly for the first time during our conversation. Derek's face goes pale as the full implications of the day's revelations begin to settle. His brother, the man he's spent years patronizing about financial limitations and conservative thinking, is a member of the most exclusive organization in Riverside, Ohio. More than that, I'm apparently comfortable enough with my membership to use it casually, to bring him here for lunch, to introduce him to other members, as if this is simply my normal social environment. I don't understand, Derek says finally. Your house, your car, your clothes. You live like someone who's careful with money. I finish. Which I am. The difference is, I'm careful so I can afford things that matter to me, not so I can appear to afford things that matter to other people. The distinction hits Derek hard, forcing him to examine his own approach to money and status. His house in Sunset Ridge, his leased BMW, his designer clothes, all of these represent attempts to appear successful rather than evidence of actual success. Meanwhile, I've been building real wealth quietly, investing in assets that appreciate rather than liabilities that impress. The chocolate souffle arrives, giving Derek time to process what he's learned while I enjoy a dessert I've come to associate with successful business meetings and satisfying conversations about municipal development and regional economics. The contrast between this moment and our usual family interactions feels surreal, as if we've stepped into an alternate universe where the roles we've played for 7 years have been completely reversed. Part 3. The silence stretches between us, as Derek processes the chocolate souffle's arrival, his spoon moving mechanically through the dessert while his mind clearly struggles with revelations that challenge 7 years of assumed family hierarchy. I can see him calculating, trying to reconcile the membership fees I've casually mentioned with his understanding of my salary and lifestyle. The numbers don't add up according to his version of reality, which means his version of reality needs significant revision. The $42,000 initiation fee, Derek says finally, his voice carrying the careful tone of someone testing dangerous waters. That's more than most people make in a year. It's a significant investment, I agree, savoring the souffle's perfect texture, but the returns have been substantial. 3 major client referrals in the first 6 months, plus access to investment opportunities that aren't available through traditional channels. Derek's confusion deepens. The language I'm using, the casual discussion of investment returns and client referrals, suggests a level of business sophistication he's never associated with my work at Henderson & Associates. In his mind, accounting means preparing tax returns and managing small business bookkeeping, not the kind of strategic financial planning that generates substantial personal wealth. What kind of investment opportunities? Derek asks, leaning forward with the intensity of someone who spent years searching for exactly this type of insider information. Municipal development projects, mostly. The city's planning significant infrastructure improvements over the next 5 years. Members here often have early access to bond offerings and development partnerships. I'm being deliberately vague, not because the information is secret but because Derek's approach to investing has always been driven by get-rich-quick enthusiasm rather than the patience and research that actual wealth building requires. Giving him specific details would likely result in impulsive decisions that could damage his already precarious financial situation. And Richard Hartwell just shares this information with you. Just like that.
We discuss regional economic trends, I correct. Richard's insights help me understand market conditions, and my analysis of municipal finances provides perspective he finds valuable. It's a professional friendship based on mutual respect and shared expertise. Derek stares at me as if I've claimed the ability to predict the future. The idea that his conservative brother might possess expertise that a bank president values challenges his fundamental understanding of intelligence, success, and family dynamics. For years Derek has positioned himself as the brother who understands money while I've been cast as the one who's too cautious to achieve real success. Mutual respect, Derek repeats slowly. With the president of First Bank of Riverside, business relationships work best when both parties benefit, I explain. Richard gains insights into municipal bond markets, I gain understanding of commercial lending trends. It's not complicated, but it is complicated for Derek, because it requires acknowledging that his brother possesses knowledge and skills he's never recognized. More than that, it means accepting that while he's been performing success through visible symbols, I've been building actual relationships with people who control significant economic resources in our community. Patricia Wells approaches our table again, this time carrying a small leather folder that I recognize as the membership directory Derek mentioned seeing at the family reunion. She places it beside my coffee cup with a smile that suggests we've discussed this moment in advance. Marcus, I thought your guest might be interested in seeing the current membership list. We're particularly proud of the diversity of professions and backgrounds represented in our community. Derek's eyes lock onto the folder as if it contains state secrets. For someone who's spent years speculating about the exclusive nature of Riverside Hills Country Club membership, actually seeing the official list represents access to information he's only imagined. Patricia departs with her characteristic discretion, leaving Derek to stare at the closed folder with obvious hunger. Go ahead, I tell him, gesturing toward the directory. It's not classified information. Derek opens the folder with trembling fingers, revealing pages of names arranged alphabetically with brief biographical information about each member. I watch his face as he scans the list, recognizing names from newspaper business sections, city council meetings, and social events he's always observed from outside. Dr. Elizabeth Sawyer, Derek reads aloud, Chief of Surgery at Riverside General Hospital. Thomas Brennan, Managing Partner, Brennan & Associates Law Firm. Jennifer Walsh, Regional Director, Ohio Department of Commerce. He continues reading, his voice growing quieter as the scope of membership becomes clear. These aren't just wealthy people who've bought their way into an exclusive club. They're community leaders, professionals with genuine expertise and influence, people whose membership reflects achievement rather than mere affluence. Your name is here, Derek says, finding my entry near the bottom of the T section. Marcus Thompson, Senior Financial Analyst, Henderson & Associates. Specialization, Municipal Bond Portfolio Management. The listing is accurate but incomplete, omitting my private investment activities, and the consulting work I've begun doing for other club members interested in diversifying their portfolios. Derek studies my entry as if it might reveal secrets about how his brother transformed from family disappointment to country club member without anyone noticing. Senior Financial Analyst, Derek repeats. When did you get promoted? 18 months ago. It came with a substantial salary increase and profit-sharing opportunities. Derek's calculation becomes visible as he processes this information. A senior position at Henderson & Associates, combined with profit sharing and the private investment income I've mentioned, could potentially generate the kind of resources necessary for country club membership. The pieces are starting to fit together, creating a picture of his brother's financial situation that differs dramatically from his assumptions. Why didn't you tell anyone about the promotion? You never asked about my work, I reply honestly. When we talk, it's usually about your sales achievements or your thoughts on my life choices. There hasn't been much opportunity to discuss my career development. The truth of this observation hits Derek visibly. Our conversations have followed the same pattern for years. Derek shares his successes while offering advice about my perceived failures. The dynamic has been so consistent that neither of us questioned it even as my actual circumstances changed significantly. The profit sharing, Derek says carefully. How substantial enough to fund my investment portfolio and cover club membership without affecting my standard of living? Derek closes the membership directory and sits back in his chair, his expression showing the exhaustion that comes from having fundamental beliefs challenged. The brother he's lectured about financial conservatism and limited thinking has quietly achieved exactly the kind of success Derek has always claimed to understand but never actually pursued. Marcus. Derek begins, then stops, clearly struggling with how to articulate what he's discovered. How long have you been planning this? Planning what? This, the membership, the networking, the relationship with bank presidents. How long have you been working toward this kind of success? The question reveals Derek's assumption that achievement requires elaborate planning and strategic maneuvering, the kind of calculated approach he associates with truly successful people. The reality is simpler and more challenging to his worldview. I've been making steady, consistent choices that accumulated into substantial results over time. 7 years, I answer. Since I started at Henderson & Associates, every financial decision has been made with long-term wealth building in mind. 7 years, Derek whispers, and I can see him calculating backward through our family interactions during that period. 7 years of him lecturing me about money management while I was systematically building a portfolio that now exceeds his annual salary. 7 years of him positioning himself as the successful brother, while I was developing relationships with community leaders he only reads about in the newspaper. The Honda Civic, Derek says suddenly. You could afford something much nicer. I could afford many things. I chose to invest the difference between a car payment and actual transportation. The Honda serves its purpose while the saved money generates returns. The house in Maple Grove, you could live in Sunset Ridge, maybe even something bigger. My house meets my needs and it's paid off. No mortgage means more money available for investments that appreciate rather than liabilities that impress neighbors. Each explanation forces Derek to confront the difference between his approach to money and mine. Where he's chosen symbols of success that require ongoing payments, I've chosen efficiency that enables wealth accumulation. Where he's focused on appearing successful to others, I've focused on building actual security for myself. But people think, Derek starts, then catches himself. People think what? People think you're not successful. At family gatherings in the community, when they see your car and your clothes, they assume you haven't figured out how to build wealth. The admission reveals something important about Derek's worldview. His concern isn't just about his own image, but about how others perceive success and failure. He's genuinely worried that people judge me negatively based on external appearances, missing entirely the possibility that I might not care about their judgments. Let them assume, I reply. Their opinions don't affect my investment returns or my bank balance. But doesn't it bother you, being underestimated? Derek asks this question with genuine confusion, as if being underestimated is inherently problematic rather than potentially advantageous. For him, success without recognition isn't really success at all. The idea that someone might prefer privacy to praise, substance to show, challenges his fundamental understanding of achievement and ambition. Sometimes being underestimated is useful, I explain. People reveal more about their own situations when they think you're not competition. They offer better deals when they think you can't afford alternatives. They share opportunities they wouldn't mention to someone they considered a threat. Derek processes this strategy slowly, recognizing its wisdom while struggling with its implications for his own approach to success. His method has been the opposite: broadcasting achievements, displaying symbols of wealth, ensuring everyone knows about his sales numbers and professional advancement. The idea that staying quiet might be more effective than speaking loudly represents a complete reversal of his operating principles. Our conversation is interrupted by the arrival of 2 other club members, Margaret Chen and David Rodriguez, both of whom approach our table with the easy familiarity that develops between people who see each other regularly in social settings. Marcus, good to see you again, Margaret says warmly. David and I were just discussing the downtown revitalization proposal. Didn't you mention having some thoughts about the financing structure? I've done some preliminary analysis, I confirm. The municipal bond approach could work, but the timing needs to align with federal infrastructure grants to maximize leverage. Exactly what I was thinking, David agrees. Would you be interested in presenting your analysis to the development committee next month? We could use someone with your expertise on the financing team. Derek watches this exchange with growing amazement. His brother, the man he's lectured about thinking small and missing opportunities, is being recruited to advise on major community development projects. The casual way Margaret and David discuss my expertise, their assumption that I have valuable insights to contribute, suggests professional recognition that extends far beyond the walls of Henderson and Associates. I'd be happy to review the proposal, I tell them. Send me the preliminary documents and I'll prepare a comprehensive analysis. After Margaret and David continue to their own table, Derek sits in stunned silence for several minutes. The evidence is overwhelming now. I'm not just a member of Riverside Hills Country Club, I'm an integrated part of its professional community. Members seek my expertise, trust my judgment, and include me in significant business discussions. You're consulting on downtown development, Derek says flatly. Informally, my background in municipal finance makes me useful for projects involving public-private partnerships. Municipal finance. You never studied municipal finance in college. I studied it afterward. Professional development, industry publications, online courses, conferences, the same way people stay current in any field that's constantly evolving. Derek's confusion deepens as he realizes that while he's been static in his sales position, focusing on monthly quotas and commission structures, I've been continuously expanding my expertise into areas that provide genuine value to community leaders and business owners. The conferences, Derek says slowly, when you take those vacation days and say you're staying home to relax, you're actually attending professional conferences. Sometimes, the National Association of Municipal Finance Officers meets annually in different cities. The workshops are excellent for staying current with federal regulations and emerging investment strategies. And while you're learning about municipal finance, I'm telling people you need to get out more and build a social life. The irony isn't lost on either of us. Derek's concern about my social development has been based on the assumption that I spend my free time alone because I lack the confidence or resources to pursue more engaging activities. The reality is that I've been using that time to build expertise that's made me valuable to people whose social circles he can only imagine joining. Different approaches to personal development, I say diplomatically. Different approaches, Derek repeats, his voice carrying a note of bitterness that suggests he's beginning to understand the gap between our actual achievements. Marcus, exactly how much money do you make in a year? The question is more direct than Derek has ever been about financial specifics, driven by his growing realization that his assumptions about my income have been dramatically incorrect. I consider how to answer honestly without being cruel about the comparison to his own situation. Between my salary, profit-sharing consulting fees, and investment returns, my annual income varies. Last year it was just over $200,000. Derek's face goes completely white. His own income, including commissions and bonuses during his best years, has never exceeded $80,000. The number I've just mentioned represents more than twice his highest earning year, generated through activities he's never associated with significant income potential. $200,000, Derek whispers. It was a particularly good year for municipal bond returns. This year will probably be closer to $170,000 depending on fourth quarter performance. Even the lower number exceeds Derek's income by a substantial margin, forcing him to confront the reality that his financially conservative brother has achieved exactly the kind of economic success Derek has always claimed to pursue but never actually attained.
And you've been
Making this kind of money for how long?
The progression has been gradual.
5 years ago my total income was about $90,000. 3 years ago it crossed 6 figures. The substantial growth is relatively recent, but the foundation has been building steadily. Derek processes this timeline, recognizing that during the years he's been lecturing me about limited thinking and missed opportunities, my income has been growing steadily toward levels he's never reached. The cognitive dissonance is clearly overwhelming, forcing him to question not just his understanding of my situation, but his own definition of success. Why didn't you tell me? Derek asks, his voice carrying genuine pain along with confusion. Tell you what? Any of it. The promotion, the income, the membership here. Why did you let me think you were struggling financially? The question strikes at the heart of our family dynamic, revealing Derek's growing awareness that our conversations have been based on assumptions rather than actual information. I consider my answer carefully, recognizing that honesty might be painful but deception would be cruel. You never asked about my situation. I begin slowly. When we talk you share your achievements and offer advice about my perceived problems. There's never been space in those conversations for me to share positive developments in my own life. Derek's face shows recognition of this pattern, the uncomfortable awareness that he's dominated our interactions for years without creating opportunities for me to contribute equally to our relationship. But you could have found ways to mention it. You could have corrected my assumptions. I agree. But correcting someone's assumptions about your success often sounds like bragging, especially when they're in the middle of sharing their own achievements. It seemed easier to let you maintain your narrative than to risk seeming competitive or boastful. So you just let me make a fool of myself, lecturing you about money management and networking while you were already more successful than I've ever been. Derek's voice carries real anguish now, the recognition that years of conversations have been based on fundamental misunderstandings about our relative positions. The pain in his expression suggests he's beginning to grasp not just the scope of his misconceptions, but the implications for his own self-image and family relationships. Part 4. Final. The weight of Derek's realization settles between us like a physical presence, transforming the elegant dining room of Riverside Hills Country Club into a space where 7 years of family mythology comes apart piece by piece. Derek stares out the window toward the 18th green, where afternoon golfers move across manicured fairways with the unhurried confidence of people who belong in exclusive spaces. The contrast between his assumptions and reality has left him visibly shaken, as if the fundamental laws of physics have suddenly changed. I need to understand something, Derek says finally, his voice carrying the careful tone of someone approaching dangerous territory. When I bought the house in Sunset Ridge 3 years ago, when I was so excited about the mortgage approval and the neighborhood status, you congratulated me. You seemed genuinely happy for my success. I was happy for you, I reply honestly. You achieved something you wanted. The fact that I could have afforded something similar doesn't diminish your accomplishment. But you could have afforded something better, Derek presses. Significantly better. Price doesn't always correlate with value. Your house suits your family's needs and makes you happy. That's what matters. Derek processes this response, clearly struggling with concepts that challenge his fundamental approach to success and competition. In his worldview, achievement is comparative. Success means doing better than others, especially family members. The idea that I might genuinely celebrate his accomplishments without feeling competitive or superior represents a perspective he's never encountered. The BMW. Derek continues, working through a mental inventory of his proudest possessions. The lease payments, the insurance, the maintenance costs. You never said anything about the financial burden. It wasn't my place to comment on your financial decisions, but you knew I was overextending myself. The question hangs between us, loaded with implications about knowledge and judgment, about family loyalty and personal boundaries. Derek is beginning to understand that my silence about his spending patterns wasn't ignorance or admiration, but discretion about subjects he never invited me to discuss. I suspected your expenses were high relative to your income, I admit carefully, but you seemed happy with your choices, and they weren't affecting me directly. Not affecting you directly. Derek repeats, his voice showing the strain of processing revelations that keep reshaping his understanding of our relationship. While I was struggling with car payments and mortgage stress, lecturing you about financial responsibility, you were building actual wealth. Different priorities, I say simply. Different priorities, Derek echoes, then falls silent for several minutes as our waiter clears the dessert plates and refills our coffee cups. The lunch crowd has begun to thin, leaving our corner of the Riverside room increasingly private as other members finish their meals and return to afternoon business or leisure activities. Marcus, Derek says eventually, his tone shifting to something I rarely hear from him, genuine vulnerability. I've made a fool of myself for years, haven't I? All those family gatherings, all those lectures about networking and success, all those times I positioned myself as the brother who understood how the world works. The pain in his voice is real, cutting through years of performative confidence to reveal someone who's discovering that his carefully constructed self-image has been built on fundamental misunderstandings. I consider how to respond honestly without being cruel, recognizing that Derek's ego has already taken substantial damage today. You've never been a fool, I tell him. You achieved genuine success in your field. Your sales numbers are impressive, your clients respect you, and you've built a good life for your family. The fact that our paths have been different doesn't diminish what you've accomplished. But the condescension, Derek insists, the constant advice about money management, the implications that you were somehow limited in your thinking. I was lecturing someone who was already more financially successful than I'll probably ever be. You were sharing what you knew based on what you observed, I reply. Your observations were incomplete, but your intentions were good. You wanted to help your brother succeed. That's not something to be ashamed of. Derek looks at me with something approaching wonder, as if he's seeing me clearly for the first time. How are you not angry? How are you sitting here being gracious about years of condescending treatment when you could have shut me down at any point by simply telling the truth? The question touches on something I've thought about extensively during the quiet hours in my home office, reviewing investment performance and considering family dynamics. Why haven't I corrected Derek's assumptions? Why have I allowed conversations that often felt dismissive and sometimes bordered on cruel? Anger wouldn't have changed anything, I explained slowly. You weren't ready to hear information that contradicted your understanding of our family dynamics. Correcting you would have required defending achievements you weren't prepared to acknowledge, which would have made both of us uncomfortable. So you just absorbed the criticism and waited for me to figure it out myself. I focused on building the life I wanted rather than managing other people's perceptions of it. Derek stares at me as if I've revealed the ability to speak in riddles. The concept of prioritizing substance over perception, of choosing actual achievement over recognition of achievement, challenges his fundamental understanding of motivation and success. For Derek, accomplishment without acknowledgement isn't really accomplishment at all. But doesn't success feel hollow without recognition? Derek asks. Doesn't it bother you that people underestimate your achievements? Recognition from the right people matters, I acknowledge. Richard Hartwell's respect for my expertise means something because he understands municipal finance. Patricia Wells' appreciation for my membership contributions matters because she manages this community effectively. But recognition from people who don't understand what I do or how I do it doesn't add value to my life. And family recognition, does that matter? The question cuts closer to emotional territory we've avoided for years, touching on the dynamics that have shaped our relationship since childhood. Derek has always needed family acknowledgement of his achievements, drawing energy from parental pride and sibling admiration. My approach has been different, finding satisfaction in the work itself rather than in others' reactions to it. Family acceptance matters, I say carefully, but I've never needed family validation of my professional choices to feel confident about them. Derek processes this distinction, recognizing perhaps for the first time that our different approaches to achievement reflect different emotional needs rather than different levels of ambition or competence. He's always assumed that my quieter approach indicated limited goals, when in fact it indicated different methods of pursuing substantial goals. The family reunion, Derek says suddenly, his face showing embarrassment as he recalls Sunday's interactions. When I talked about poor Marcus and his limited thinking, when I lectured Tyler about networking and country club memberships, you were sitting there knowing that you'd already achieved everything I was describing as impossible for you. You were trying to help Tyler understand opportunities, I replied diplomatically. Your advice about networking wasn't wrong, just incomplete. Incomplete, Derek repeats with a bitter laugh. I was describing Riverside Hills Country Club as the pinnacle of business networking while talking to someone who was already a member. I was explaining the importance of being where decision makers are while speaking to someone who has lunch with bank presidents. The scope of Derek's humiliation is becoming clear, extending beyond our private lunch to encompass public family moments where his ignorance of my actual situation led to particularly pointed examples of condescension. Sunday's reunion conversation with Tyler, where Derek used me as an example of someone who didn't understand success, now appears especially painful in retrospect. Tyler didn't know the context either, I point out. Your advice was still valuable for someone just starting his career, but you could have contributed to that conversation, Derek says, his voice carrying genuine regret. You could have shared actual insights about club membership and professional networking instead of sitting quietly while I speculated about things you know firsthand. Tyler got the information he needed. The source didn't matter as much as the content. Derek shakes his head slowly, clearly struggling with my lack of apparent resentment about being excluded from conversations where my expertise would have been valuable. His worldview includes strong assumptions about recognition and credit, about the importance of being acknowledged for knowledge and achievement. My willingness to let him lecture about subjects I understand better than he does challenges his fundamental beliefs about human motivation. Marcus, I need to ask you something directly, Derek says, leaning forward with sudden intensity. Are you deliberately making me look foolish? Is this some kind of long-term strategy to humiliate me? The question startles me with its paranoid edge, revealing depths of insecurity I hadn't recognized in Derek's personality. The idea that my professional success might be motivated by sibling rivalry rather than personal ambition suggests a level of self-centeredness I find both sad and revealing. My financial decisions have nothing to do with you, I reply firmly. I joined this club because it serves my business interests and provides access to investment opportunities. I built my portfolio because I wanted financial security. I developed expertise in municipal finance because it's intellectually interesting and professionally valuable. None of it was designed to affect you in any way. But you had to know I'd find out eventually. I assumed you'd find out when it became relevant to our interactions. Today seemed like an appropriate time to share the information. Derek processes this explanation, clearly trying to understand motivations that don't center around family competition or one-upmanship. The concept that I might pursue success for its own sake, without reference to his achievements or opinions, represents a fundamentally different approach to ambition than anything he's encountered. The client referrals you mentioned, Derek says, shifting to practical concerns. The investment opportunities. How substantial are we talking about? Substantial enough to justify the membership costs several times over. Last month alone, connections made here led to 3 new portfolio management clients and early access to a municipal bond offering that generated 12% returns in 6 weeks. Derek's face shows the kind of hunger I associate with his approach to get-rich-quick schemes, the immediate interest in specific opportunities, rather than systematic approaches to wealth building. His question reveals the same thinking patterns that have limited his financial growth: focus on individual deals rather than consistent strategies. Could you introduce me to these opportunities? Derek asks, his tone shifting to the familiar combination of enthusiasm and presumption that characterizes his approach to networking. The opportunities emerge from relationships built over time, I explain carefully. Richard Hartwell shares insights because we've developed mutual respect through months of substantive conversations about economic policy. Margaret and David include me in development projects because they've observed my analytical capabilities and professional judgment. These connections can't be transferred or quickly replicated. Derek's expression shows frustration with this explanation, clearly hoping for shortcuts that would allow him to access the benefits of my networking without investing the time and effort that relationship building requires. His approach to success has always emphasized immediate results over patient development, which explains both his sales achievements and his financial limitations. But you could sponsor me for membership here, Derek suggests. Help me get access to the same networking opportunities. The request hangs between us, loaded with assumptions about financial capability and social dynamics that Derek hasn't fully considered. Club membership requires more than sponsorship. It demands financial resources for fees and dues, plus the professional credentials and personal qualities that the membership committee evaluates during the application process. Sponsorship is only one part of the membership process, I explain diplomatically. The club evaluates financial stability, professional achievements, and character references. The process typically takes 8 to 12 months from application to approval, and the financial requirements. The initiation fee is $42,000 as I mentioned. Monthly dues are $850, with dining minimums and activity fees that bring the annual cost to roughly $15,000 beyond the initiation. Derek's face goes pale as he calculates these numbers against his current financial situation. The initiation fee alone exceeds his available savings, and the ongoing monthly costs would strain his budget significantly. The realization that country club membership isn't just exclusive but genuinely expensive forces him to confront the gap between his aspirations and his actual resources. $15,000 a year in ongoing costs, Derek repeats slowly. Minimum. Members who use the golf course frequently or host business events regularly often spend considerably more, and this doesn't strain your budget. The business benefits offset the costs. Client referrals and investment opportunities generate returns that exceed the membership expenses by substantial margins. Derek processes this explanation, recognizing that club membership represents a business investment for me rather than a luxury expense. The distinction highlights different approaches to spending. Derek focuses on lifestyle enhancement while I focus on income generation. His BMW lease provides transportation and status. My club membership provides business development and networking. I've been thinking about money all wrong, Derek says finally, his voice carrying the exhaustion of someone whose fundamental beliefs have been thoroughly challenged.
All these years I've focused on looking successful rather than being successful. Different approaches, I reply, offering the diplomatic phrase that's become our shorthand for acknowledging divergent strategies without assigning judgment. No, Derek says firmly. Not different approaches. Wrong approach. I've been using credit to fund a lifestyle that creates the appearance of success while preventing the accumulation of actual wealth. Meanwhile, you've been living below your means to build investments that generate real financial security. The admission represents significant self-awareness from Derek, acknowledging patterns that have limited his financial growth while recognizing strategies that have enabled mine. His willingness to examine his own choices critically suggests emotional maturity I haven't always associated with his personality. Your approach worked for your goals, I point out. You wanted to enjoy your success immediately to live well while building your career. There's nothing wrong with that choice, except that it prevents long-term wealth building. Derek replies, every dollar I spend on car payments and mortgage interest is a dollar that's not generating investment returns. Every month I carry credit card balances, I'm paying interest instead of earning it. Derek's financial education is happening in real time, connecting concepts he's always understood intellectually with practical implications he's never fully considered. The conversation represents the kind of learning that typically occurs over months or years, compressed into a single afternoon of revelation and self-examination. It's not too late to change strategies, I tell him. You're 34 years old with established income and professional reputation. Adjusting your approach to spending and investing could still generate substantial long-term wealth, but I'd have to give up the lifestyle, Derek says, his voice showing the difficulty of contemplating changes that would affect his family's standard of living. The house, the car, the social expectations that come with appearing successful. You'd have to choose between current lifestyle and future financial security, I clarify. Some people prioritize present enjoyment, others prioritize future wealth. Both choices are valid, but they lead to different outcomes. Derek stares out the window again, watching golfers navigate the course with casual expertise that comes from years of practice and substantial financial resources. The scene represents everything he's aspired to achieve: leisure time, expensive hobbies, social environments where business relationships develop naturally through shared activities. Could I learn what you know? Derek asks suddenly. About investments, municipal bonds, portfolio management. Could you teach me? The request touches on territory we've never explored, the possibility of genuine collaboration rather than competitive performance. Derek's question suggests recognition that my expertise has value combined with humility about his own knowledge gaps. It represents a fundamental shift from lecturing to learning, from assumption to inquiry. Investment education takes time and patience, I explain. The strategies that work require consistency over years rather than dramatic moves that generate quick returns. Are you prepared for that kind of commitment? I don't know, Derek admits. I've always been attracted to bigger, faster opportunities. The idea of waiting 5 years to see substantial results feels impossible. Then you're probably not ready for serious investing, I reply honestly. The mindset that creates wealth is fundamentally different from the mindset that seeks immediate gratification. Until you can delay satisfaction for long-term gains, investment strategies won't work for you. Derek nods slowly, recognizing the truth in this assessment while clearly struggling with its implications for his financial future. His personality and professional success have been built around quick results and immediate feedback. Adjusting to investment timeframes that measure success in years rather than months would require fundamental changes in thinking and behavior. What if I started small? Derek asks. What if I tried to learn your approach while maintaining some of my current lifestyle? Compromise strategies typically produce compromise results, I warn. Successful investing requires discipline about spending, patience with returns, and consistency in contributions. Half measures usually lead to disappointment and abandonment of the strategy, so it's all or nothing. It's priorities, I correct. If building long-term wealth is your highest priority, you'll make the choices necessary to achieve it. If maintaining current lifestyle is your highest priority, you'll make different choices. Both approaches are rational, but they're incompatible with each other. Derek considers this framework, clearly weighing the difficulty of lifestyle changes against the appeal of financial security. The conversation has moved beyond revelation about my success to examination of his own choices and their long-term consequences. I need to think about this, Derek says finally. Everything I thought I knew about money and success has been turned upside down today. I need time to process what I've learned and figure out what changes I'm willing to make. Take all the time you need, I reply. Financial decisions are personal. What works for me might not work for you. Derek signals for the check, a gesture that feels symbolic given the context of our conversation about money and resources. When the waiter arrives, Derek reaches for his wallet with automatic confidence, then hesitates as he remembers that we're in an environment where I'm the member and he's the guest. I'll take care of this, I tell him, signing the check to my account without examining the total. Thank you, Derek says quietly, his gratitude extending beyond the meal to encompass the larger revelations of the afternoon. We leave the Riverside room together, walking through the clubhouse with dramatically different perspectives than when we arrived. Derek takes in details he missed earlier, the quality of the artwork, the understated elegance of the furnishings, the quiet conversations between members whose names he recognizes from business sections and social pages. In the parking lot, Derek pauses beside his BMW, looking at the vehicle with new awareness of what it represents: substantial monthly payments that prevent investment, status symbol that masks financial limitation, choice to appear successful rather than become successful. Marcus, Derek says as we reach our cars, I owe you an apology, not just for today, but for years of treating you like someone who didn't understand success when you understood it better than I did. You don't owe me anything, I reply. We had different information about each other's situations. Today we shared more complete information. That's progress. Derek extends his hand for a handshake that feels different from our usual family interactions, carrying the weight of mutual respect rather than performative affection. I hope we can have more conversations like this, he says, real conversations about money and success and what we're both trying to build. I'd like that, I tell him honestly. Derek drives away in his BMW, leaving me standing in the parking lot of Riverside Hills Country Club with my membership directory in hand and 7 years of family dynamics forever changed. The afternoon has revealed truths that were always present but never acknowledged, creating possibilities for authentic relationship that didn't exist when our interactions were based on assumptions rather than reality. As I drive home through the familiar streets of Riverside, past the modest houses and local businesses that define my daily environment, I consider what the day has accomplished. Derek's understanding of my financial situation has been corrected, but more importantly, his assumptions about success and achievement have been challenged in ways that might lead to genuine growth. The revelation that his conservative brother has quietly achieved everything Derek talks about pursuing forces him to examine his own strategies and priorities. Whether he'll make the changes necessary to build actual wealth rather than the appearance of wealth remains to be seen, but the conversation has at least made those choices visible. Back in my home office that evening, I review the day's investment performance while reflecting on the afternoon's conversations. The municipal bond portfolio shows continued steady growth, the blue chip holdings have maintained their upward trajectory, and several new opportunities have emerged from relationships that began in the quiet dining rooms and informal gathering spaces of Riverside Hills Country Club. My phone buzzes with a text from Derek. Thank you for today. I have a lot to think about, but I'm grateful you shared the truth with me. Maybe we can grab lunch again soon somewhere less expensive. I smile at the message, recognizing both humor and humility in Derek's acknowledgement of financial realities he's been avoiding. The possibility of building a genuine relationship with my brother, based on honest communication rather than performed success, feels worth the afternoon's revelations and their inevitable complications. The evening ritual continues with review of market conditions, analysis of emerging opportunities, and planning for strategic adjustments that will position the portfolio for continued growth. The work that Derek has never associated with significant income potential fills my evening hours with intellectual satisfaction and financial rewards that have quietly transformed my life over 7 years of patient accumulation. Tomorrow will bring new conversations, new opportunities, and new choices about how to balance privacy with authenticity and family relationships that have been forever changed by a single afternoon of unexpected honesty. Part 5. Final 6 months after our lunch at Riverside Hills Country Club, the transformation in Derek's approach to money and success has been nothing short of remarkable. The man who once lectured me about financial limitations while carrying substantial credit card debt has systematically restructured his entire economic life with the methodical precision of someone who finally understands the difference between appearing
wealthy and building wealth. The changes began slowly, almost imperceptibly, with Derek asking genuine questions about investment strategies during our newly established monthly lunches. These conversations, held at Tony's Diner rather than exclusive restaurants, represent a complete reversal of our historical dynamic. Instead of Derek sharing his latest sales achievements while offering unsolicited advice about my perceived limitations, our discussions focus on practical financial education and long-term wealth-building strategies. Derek's first major decision was trading his leased BMW for a reliable used Honda Accord, a choice that freed up $800 monthly while providing transportation that actually serves his needs rather than his image. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of us, Derek choosing substance over show, efficiency over impression, practical value over perceived status. The money previously dedicated to car payments now flows directly into a diversified investment portfolio we designed together during careful evening sessions in my home office. The house in Sunset Ridge proved more complicated to address, given Vanessa's attachment to the neighborhood and the children's school relationships. Rather than forcing immediate change, Derek refinanced to reduce monthly payments and began systematically paying additional principal to accelerate equity building. More importantly, he stopped viewing the house as a status symbol and began treating it as a long-term investment in his family's financial security. Vanessa's adaptation to these changes revealed character depths that surprised everyone, including Derek himself. The woman I'd always associated with designer handbags and expensive tastes embraced the budget restructuring with enthusiasm that suggested she'd been uncomfortable with their previous spending patterns but hadn't known how to address the disconnect between lifestyle and actual resources. Their marriage has strengthened significantly as financial stress decreased and shared goals replaced competitive consumption. The most significant change, however, has been Derek's approach to his career at the luxury car dealership. Instead of focusing solely on monthly commission targets, he's begun building genuine relationships with clients who represent long-term business opportunities rather than single-transaction sales. This strategic shift has actually increased his income while reducing the stress associated with constantly chasing new prospects to maintain previous performance levels. Derek's transformation became public knowledge during last month's annual Thompson family reunion, held again at the Oakwood Community Center but with dramatically different dynamics than the previous year's gathering. The same relatives assembled around the same folding tables laden with casserole dishes and homemade desserts, but the conversations carried undertones of awareness that family hierarchies had shifted in ways that weren't entirely understood but couldn't be ignored. Derek arrived in his Honda Accord parked without fanfare among the other modest family vehicles, carrying himself with quiet confidence that replaced his previous need for performance and attention. The change was immediately noticeable to relatives accustomed to his grand entrances and detailed recitations of recent achievements. Instead of dominating conversations with sales statistics and lifestyle updates, Derek listened more than he spoke, asking thoughtful questions about other family members' lives and goals. The revelation about my country club membership had circulated through family networks over the intervening months, creating ripple effects that extended far beyond Derek's initial shock. Uncle Paul had mentioned it to Aunt Carol, who'd shared the information with Cousin Tyler, who'd told his parents, until eventually every family member understood that Marcus, the brother they'd all assumed was financially struggling, had quietly achieved substantial success while remaining characteristically modest about his accomplishments. Tyler approached me early in the reunion with questions that revealed how much family perceptions had shifted. "Uncle Marcus, I've been thinking about what Uncle Derek told me last year about networking in country clubs. He mentioned you're actually a member at Riverside Hills. Could you tell me about how someone builds toward that kind of achievement?" The question represented everything that had changed about family interactions over the past year. Instead of receiving advice from Derek about theoretical success strategies, Tyler was seeking practical guidance from someone who'd actually implemented those strategies successfully. The shift in family dynamics wasn't lost on anyone present, particularly Derek, who watched these conversations with apparent satisfaction rather than resentment. "The most important element is consistent long-term planning," I explained to Tyler while Derek listened attentively. "Success isn't usually about dramatic moves or breakthrough moments. It's about making steady choices that accumulate into substantial results over time." "Like what kinds of choices?" "Spending less than you earn, investing the difference systematically, continuously developing professional expertise, building genuine relationships rather than transactional networks." The fundamentals aren't complicated, but they require patience and discipline most people aren't willing to maintain. Derek nodded approvingly at this explanation, recognizing concepts we'd discussed extensively during our monthly educational sessions. His willingness to let me take the lead in mentoring Tyler demonstrated personal growth that extended beyond financial decisions to encompass genuine character development. Mom approached our conversation with the careful expression she'd worn whenever family dynamics threatened to become complicated, clearly uncertain how to navigate the new reality of her son's relationship. For 33 years she'd managed the balance between Derek's need for recognition and my preference for privacy, smoothing conflicts while enabling patterns that probably weren't healthy for either of us. "It's wonderful to see you boys talking so seriously about important matters," she said, her tone carrying genuine pleasure along with relief that our interactions no longer carried undertones of competition or condescension. "Marcus has been incredibly generous with his time and expertise," Derek replied, his gratitude evident and apparently sincere. "I'm learning more about financial planning in our monthly conversations than I learned in the previous decade of trying to figure things out myself." The comment revealed something significant about Derek's transformed perspective. The brother who'd spent years positioning himself as the family expert on money and success now openly acknowledged his need for education and guidance. This humility, once foreign to his personality, had become a defining characteristic of his approach to personal development. Dad joined our circle carrying the beer and slightly bemused expression that suggested he was still processing the reversal in his son's apparent financial sophistication. "Marcus, I have to admit I never understood your approach to money when you were younger. All that saving and careful planning seemed overly conservative. Now I'm wondering if maybe I should have been paying more attention to your strategies." The admission represented significant personal growth from a man who'd always assumed that Derek's flashier approach to success indicated superior understanding of money and achievement. Dad's willingness to acknowledge his misperceptions combined with genuine interest in learning from strategies he'd previously dismissed, demonstrated family maturity that extended beyond just Derek's transformation. "Different approaches work for different personalities," I replied diplomatically. "The key is matching your financial strategies to your actual goals rather than trying to implement approaches that contradict your natural inclinations." "But some approaches are clearly more effective than others," Derek interjected, his voice carrying conviction born from personal experience. "I spent years focusing on appearing successful rather than building actual wealth. Marcus focused on substance over show, and the results speak for themselves." Derek's public acknowledgement of our shifted dynamic represented the culmination of months of private conversation and personal growth. The brother who'd once lectured me about limited thinking now openly credited my strategies as superior to his own historical approach. The reversal wasn't lost on any family member present, creating space for authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than assumed hierarchies. Vanessa approached our group carrying 2-year-old Emma, their youngest daughter, while 8-year-old Michael explored the community center playground with his cousins. Her transformation over the past 6 months had been as dramatic as Derek's, though expressed through different choices and priorities. "Marcus, I wanted to thank you for the budget planning advice you gave us last month," Vanessa said, her tone carrying genuine appreciation. "The strategies you suggested have eliminated so much financial stress from our daily lives. I had no idea how much anxiety we were carrying about money until it was gone." The comment revealed something important about the hidden costs of living beyond one's means. Derek and Vanessa's previous lifestyle had created constant pressure to maintain income levels that supported their spending patterns, generating stress that affected their relationship and family dynamics in ways they hadn't recognized until the pressure was removed. "The peace of mind is remarkable," Derek agreed. "When your spending is aligned with your actual income, when you're building wealth rather than accumulating debt, everything feels more manageable." "I wish we'd made these changes years ago." "You made them when you were ready," I replied. Timing matters with financial decisions. Implementing strategies before you're mentally prepared for them usually leads to abandonment when they become difficult. Derek nodded thoughtfully, recognizing wisdom gained through personal experience rather than theoretical understanding. His transformation had required genuine commitment to delayed gratification and systematic planning, personality changes that couldn't have been forced through external pressure or premature advice. The reunion continued around us with the familiar rhythms of family gatherings, but the conversations carried new undertones of respect for different approaches to success and achievement. The revelation about my financial situation had challenged assumptions that extended beyond just Derek's perceptions, forcing multiple family members to examine their own beliefs about money, success, and the various paths toward economic security. As the afternoon progressed, I found myself in an unexpected role as informal financial advisor to relatives who'd never previously sought my perspective on money matters. Cousin Tyler wanted guidance about student loan management and early investment strategies. Aunt Carol asked questions about retirement planning and Social Security optimization. Uncle Paul sought advice about small business tax strategies and equipment financing. These conversations represented a complete reversal of my historical position within family dynamics. The quiet brother who'd been overlooked during discussions of money and success was now recognized as someone with valuable expertise and practical wisdom. The change felt surreal but also satisfying, validating years of careful planning and disciplined execution. Derek observed these interactions with apparent pride, clearly pleased that his brother was receiving recognition for achievements that had been invisible to family members for too long. His transformation from competitor to champion represented personal growth that extended far beyond financial education to encompass genuine character development. "You know what's interesting?" Derek said during a quiet moment when we found ourselves alone at the dessert table. "I spent years trying to impress people with symbols of success that were actually preventing me from achieving real success. Meanwhile, you were building actual wealth while people assumed you were struggling financially. There's something profound about that disconnect between appearance and reality." "People see what they expect to see," I replied. "When you drive a modest car and live in a simple house, they assume financial limitation. When you drive a luxury car and live in an expensive neighborhood, they assume financial success. Most people don't look deeper than surface indicators. But that creates opportunities for people who understand the difference between looking wealthy and being wealthy," Derek observed. "Your approach has advantages beyond just the financial returns. You avoid the social pressure that comes with maintaining expensive lifestyle expectations." Derek's insight revealed sophisticated understanding that had developed through months of examining his own spending patterns and their psychological motivations. He'd come to recognize that lifestyle inflation creates social obligations that can trap people in cycles of earning and spending that prevent wealth accumulation. "The freedom is significant," I agreed. "When people assume you can't afford expensive things, they don't expect you to participate in expensive activities or contribute to expensive group purchases. It's easier to make financial decisions based on actual value rather than social expectations." "I never considered that angle," Derek admitted. "I was so focused on meeting social expectations that I forgot to evaluate whether those expectations served my actual interests." Our conversation was interrupted by James Martinez, who'd arrived late to the reunion after finishing his Saturday shift at the hospital, where he works as a radiologic technologist. James had been following Derek's transformation with amused interest, watching from the sidelines as family dynamics shifted in ways that vindicated years of conversations about wealth building and financial discipline. "Derek, you're looking remarkably relaxed for a family gathering," James observed with characteristic humor. "I remember last year you spent most of the time explaining to everyone why Marcus needed to think bigger about money and success." Derek's face showed embarrassment as he recalled the previous year's performance, recognizing how dramatically his perspective had changed since discovering the reality of my financial situation. "Last year I was an expert on subjects I didn't actually understand," Derek replied with self-deprecating honesty. "This year I'm a student learning from someone who actually knows what he's talking about." "The difference shows," James said approvingly. "You seem more centered, more authentic. Whatever changes you've made are clearly working." "Marcus has been an excellent teacher," Derek acknowledged. "Patient, practical, willing to share expertise without making me feel stupid about previous mistakes. I'm grateful for his guidance." James smiled at this exchange, clearly pleased to see family relationships developing in healthier directions. His friendship with me had provided him with ringside seats to years of family dynamics that often felt uncomfortable, making him particularly appreciative of the positive changes that had emerged from honest communication about money and success. As the reunion wound down and families began gathering their dishes and collecting tired children, Derek approached me with an unusual request. "Marcus, would you be willing to speak to a small group of my colleagues about investment strategies? Several people at the dealership have been asking questions about financial planning, and I think they'd benefit from hearing your perspective." The request represented something unprecedented in our relationship, Derek voluntarily sharing credit and recognition rather than claiming expertise he didn't possess. His willingness to position me as the expert while taking the supporting role demonstrated character growth that extended far beyond financial education. "I'd be happy to share what I know," I replied. "Financial literacy education benefits everyone involved. I was thinking we could hold it at the dealership conference room one evening next month."
Nothing formal, just practical advice about budgeting, investing, long-term planning. The kind of fundamentals that most people never learn despite needing them desperately. Derek's proposal revealed his growing understanding of the gap between what people need to know about money and what they actually learn through traditional education and workplace training. His desire to provide practical financial education to colleagues suggested genuine concern for their well-being, rather than self-serving networking. "Send me the details and I'll prepare something appropriate for the audience," I agreed. As we prepared to leave the community center, Derek paused beside his Honda Accord with an expression of genuine contentment that I'd rarely seen from him. The car that had initially represented sacrifice and diminished status had become a symbol of conscious choice and financial discipline, freeing resources for wealth building while providing reliable transportation that actually served his needs. "You know what I've realized over the past 6 months," Derek said, leaning against the vehicle he'd once considered embarrassing. "Success isn't about impressing other people, it's about building the life you actually want rather than the life you think other people expect you to want." "That's a profound insight," I replied, recognizing the wisdom that comes from experience rather than theory. "It took me 34 years to figure out something you understood at 25, Derek said with rueful humor. "But better late than never, right? The important thing is that you figured it out," I assured him. "Most people never examine their financial assumptions closely enough to recognize when their strategies aren't working." Derek nodded thoughtfully, then extended his hand for the firm handshake that had become our standard farewell since rebuilding our relationship on foundations of mutual respect rather than competitive performance. "Thank you for being patient with me," he said. "For not giving up on the possibility that I could learn better approaches. Family relationships are worth the investment," I replied. As Derek drove away in his practical Honda, followed by Vanessa and the children in their sensible minivan, I reflected on the remarkable transformation that had occurred over 6 months of honest conversation and financial education. The brother who'd spent years lecturing me about limited thinking had embraced strategies that required delayed gratification and systematic planning, fundamentally changing his approach to money and success. The changes extended beyond just Derek's personal choices to encompass family dynamics that had been problematic for years. Our monthly conversations had created space for authentic relationship based on shared learning rather than competitive performance. The financial education we'd undertaken together had strengthened his marriage, reduced family stress, and provided practical tools for building long-term wealth. Most significantly, Derek's transformation had demonstrated that people can change fundamental patterns when they're ready to examine their assumptions honestly and implement new strategies consistently. His willingness to acknowledge mistakes, learn from someone he'd previously underestimated, and make difficult choices about lifestyle and spending had created possibilities for personal growth that seemed impossible just months earlier. Driving home through the familiar streets of Riverside, I considered how the day's interactions represented the culmination of a year-long process that began with Derek's shock at discovering my country club membership, and evolved into genuine collaboration around financial education and wealth building. The family reunion that had historically reinforced problematic dynamics had become an opportunity to model healthier approaches to success and achievement. Back in my home office that evening, I reviewed investment performance while reflecting on the satisfaction that comes from helping others achieve their financial goals. The portfolio continues its steady growth through diversified holdings and strategic positioning, but the numbers on my computer screen represent only part of what I've accomplished over the past year. The transformation in Derek's approach to money and success, the strengthening of our relationship through honest communication, and the positive effects on his family's financial security provide rewards that extend far beyond personal wealth accumulation. The expertise I've developed over 7 years of disciplined investing has become a tool for helping others build better lives, creating value that multiplies beyond individual achievement. My phone buzzes with a text from Derek. "Thank you again for today. The family dynamics feel so much healthier when we're honest about our actual situations rather than performing roles we think we should play. Looking forward to next month's conversation about tax-advantage retirement accounts." I smile at the message, recognizing both gratitude and genuine enthusiasm for continued learning. Derek's transformation from lecturer to student, from competitor to collaborator, has created possibilities for family relationship that didn't exist when our interactions were based on assumptions rather than reality. The evening ritual continues with analysis of market conditions and planning for strategic adjustments that will position the portfolio for continued growth. But tonight the work carries additional satisfaction, knowing that the wealth-building strategies I've developed through years of patient accumulation are now helping others achieve their own financial goals and family security. Tomorrow will bring new opportunities to share knowledge, support family relationships, and demonstrate that success doesn't require performance or competition. The quiet satisfaction of building actual wealth while helping others do the same provides rewards that no country club membership or social recognition could match. The journey from Derek's condescending assumptions to genuine partnership and financial education has revealed truths about family success and the difference between appearing wealthy and building wealth that will influence our relationship for years to come. Sometimes the most profound changes begin with the simplest revelation that people aren't always what they appear to be, and authentic success often looks very different from its performance. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.